The detonation of the Zythric command sphere had turned the 12,000-ship alien armada into a graveyard of inert hulks stretching 3.2 light-years across the void. Sentry drones from the battered 7th Human Fleet zipped between the drifting dreadnoughts, each 12 kilometers long, capable of glassing a colony world in under an hour, picking up 0 reactor signatures, 0 weapons activity, 0 comms traffic. The Titan Zythric war machine, which had pushed humanity to the brink of extinction 6 months prior, was dead in the water, its quantum entanglement command network fried by the sphere's collapse. The bridge of the fleet carrier Dauntless emergency red strobing lit up sparking conduits and the scattered debris of the last dogfight. Captain Mara Voss stood at the central tactical plot, her fleet uniform singed at the cuffs, a blood-stained bandage pressed to the gash on her left temple. The psychic scream from the Zythric entity that had assaulted the scavenger team during the sphere breach still throbbed behind her eyes, but her voice was steady when she spoke. Sentry Drone 7B, report. Lieutenant Jax Rourke, 24, fresh out of the academy and the Dauntless's comms officer, leaned into his headset, his console fizzing with static. All drones confirm, Captain. The entire armada is dark, no FTL drives spooling, no weapons charging, no life signs on any of the capital ships. It's like someone flipped a kill switch on their entire fleet. Chief Warrant Officer Alara Kale, 38, the fleet's tactical chief who had first theorized the Zythric used the sphere as their central command hub, didn't look up from her haptic interface, her fingers flying across the glowing blue panel. Confirmed. The sphere was the core node for every Zythric capital ship's quantum link. The detonation overloaded every connection in their network. They can't coordinate a fighter sweep, let alone a full fleet attack. Half their dreadnoughts are venting reactor coolant into space. We didn't just hold the line, we blinded their entire forward war machine. A chirp cut her off. The scavenger team's escape pod, 20 clicks out from the Dauntless, had breached the fleet's encrypted comms channel. Aaron's voice came through, rough with pain, the crackle of static under his words. Scavenger team all accounted for. Charge detonated exactly as planned. Sphere core is fully collapsed, no sign of the entity. Got second-degree burns on my hands from the casing, but I'm functional. The psychic scream cut out the second the sphere went critical. Whatever that thing was, it's gone. Copy that, scavenger team, Mara said, her jaw tight. Medbay's prepped for you, debrief in 2 hours. She turned back to Alara, her expression hardening. Response timeline, Alara pulled up a star chart, 3 red blips glowing 12 light-years out, her stomach tightened. Zythric 3rd, 7th, and 12th response fleets. They'll have picked up the quantum static from the sphere collapse within the hour. Their fastest FTL cruisers can cover 12 light-years in 72 hours. We've got 3 days max before they're on top of us. The hangar bay hummed with quiet urgency as surviving ASF, advanced stealth fighter, squadrons prepped for launch. Lieutenant Kalen Rook, callsign Wraith, sat in the cockpit of his matte black stealth fighter, the hull scorched from the earlier dogfight, a faint burn stinging his left forearm. His WSO, Lieutenant Zara Mendez, callsign Shade, ran a final diagnostic on the weapon systems, her fingers flying across the control panel. Stealth coding is 87% intact, all sensors green, she said, not looking up. We can stay hidden from Zythric long-range scans if we keep speed under 0.2 lightspeed, no FTL jumps, no active comms. All 11 surviving ASFs are prepped, just waiting for the launch order. The comms in Wraith's cockpit chirped, Mara's voice cutting through the hum. All ASF squadrons launch on my mark, deploy in a 10 light-hour perimeter around the fleet. You are the eyes. If you spot Zythric ships before they enter our sensor range, report back. Do not engage unless compromised. We cannot afford to lose any more of our own. The Zythric are coming, and we will be ready. Wraith's fighter launched from the Dauntless's electromagnetic catapult with a jolt, gliding silently out into the void. He cut his engines, drifting into the dark, the drifting hulks of the Zythric armada glowing faintly in the distance behind him. He keyed his comms, his voice calm, steady, as he took the first watch. Wraith to fleet. Perimeter deployed, holding position. Waiting for the wolves. Chapter 2. Silent perimeter. The void swallowed sound, leaving only the faint vibration of the cockpit as Wraith's fighter drifted in the black. His eyes tracked the faint glimmers of the Zythric armada far beyond sensor range, massive silhouettes against the starfield, their hulls pulsing with eerie bioluminescence. The enemy ships moved with arrogant precision, as if the humans were already defeated, as if the war was a formality. Shade's voice cut through the silence. Telemetry stable. No emissions detected. 11 birds holding formation. We're ghosts. Wraith adjusted his flight vector by a fraction, keeping his fighter aligned with the Dauntless's projected perimeter. Ghosts don't get sloppy. Keep your eyes sharp. Across the squadron net, clipped voices reported in. Spectre holding at Sector 9. Phantom clear, no contacts. Shade 2 stable, perimeter green. The calm professionalism carried weight. Every pilot knew the stakes: one mistake, one emission spike, and the Zythric would pounce. Their sensor arrays could peel apart stealth coatings like paper if given a trace to follow. Hours passed in silence, the fighters drifting like invisible shards of glass. Then a faint distortion rippled across Wraith's passive sensors. Shade leaned forward, narrowing her eyes at the readout. Contact, bearing 41 distance, 12 light towers, signature faint, but it's moving fast. Wraith's jaw tightened. Zythric scout, Shade's fingers danced across the console. Not a scout, too big. Energy profile matches a cruiser. They're probing the perimeter. The comms crackled with Mara's voice, low and deliberate. ASF perimeter, hold position. Do not engage. Relay telemetry only. Wraith transmitted the data burst, silent and compressed. The Dauntless would receive it without betraying their position. Shade exhaled slowly. Cruiser's vector is sweeping. They're hunting. Wraith's gaze locked on the faint shimmer of the alien vessel. Its hull glowed with shifting patterns like a predator flexing muscles before the strike. They know we're here, not exactly where, but close enough. The squadron net buzzed with tension. Spectre, cruiser closing on my sector. Phantom, adjusting drift, they're triangulating. Shade 2, recommend reposition. Mara's voice returned, sharper now. Negative, hold. If they commit, we'll know their intent. Do not break stealth. The alien cruiser slowed, its hull lights dimming. Then, with sudden violence, it released a swarm of smaller craft, needle-like interceptors that fanned out in a wide arc. Their movements were erratic, designed to flush hidden enemies from the dark. Shade's knuckles whitened on the console. They're sweeping with drones. If one gets close enough, our stealth coating won't hold. Wraith's voice remained steady. Then we stay colder than they expect. The interceptors darted through the void, their sensor beams slicing invisible paths. One veered dangerously close to Wraith's position, its hull gleaming with alien glyphs. Shade's breath caught. Range closing, 2,000 kilometers. If it sweeps, Wraith cut her off. Hold. The interceptor passed, its beam skimming just shy of their vector. The fighter remained invisible, a shadow among shadows. Shade exhaled, her shoulders dropping. Too close. Wraith's eyes never left the display. Close is survival, dead is failure. Across the net, a sudden burst of static erupted. Phantom's voice broke through, urgent. Interceptor locked on me, stealth compromised, engaging. The silence shattered. Phantom's fighter ignited, streaking from the void with a burst of plasma fire. The interceptor exploded in a flash of alien debris, but the act lit Phantom's position like a beacon. The cruiser's sensors flared, locking onto the lone ASF. Shade's voice was tight. They've got him. Cruiser vector shifting. Phantom's blown cover. Mara's command came instantly. All units maintain stealth. Phantom, break contact and evade. Do not draw the swarm toward the fleet. Phantom's voice was grim. Copy, running dark. Wraith watched as Phantom's fighter vanished into the black, pursued by a cluster of interceptors. The cruiser shifted course, accelerating after him. Shade's eyes flicked to Wraith. They'll tear him apart. Wraith's tone was iron. If he runs silent, he buys us time. That's the mission. The squadron held position, the tension suffocating. Phantom's telemetry blinked across the net, erratic, fading. Then silence. Shade whispered, signal lost. Mara's voice returned, colder than steel. Phantom is gone, the perimeter holds, all units maintain position. The Zythric know we're watching, let them come. Wraith's grip tightened on the controls, his forearm burning beneath the bandage. He stared at the void where Phantom had vanished, the silence heavier than before. Shade broke it softly. 1 down, 10 left. Wraith's reply was a whisper, steady and merciless. 10 ghosts, enough to haunt them. The alien cruiser drifted back toward its armada, interceptors regrouping. The humans remained unseen, their presence unconfirmed but suspected. The perimeter held, fragile and defiant. In the black between stars, the war waited to ignite. The 12th Hegemony invasion fleet stretched 12,000 clicks across the void, 3,200 capital ships glinting with ion cannon arrays capable of cracking a planetary crust in a single salvo. To the 10 remaining ASF pilots, it was a wall of iron and malice, so close they could see the running lights of the Vanguard cruisers escort destroyers through their cockpit canopies if they turned their heads. Wraith didn't turn his head. He kept his gaze fixed on his sensor feed, the ache in his bandaged forearm pulsing in time with the low thrum of his ASF stealth drive. Swarmer signature 120 bogies, bearing 270, closing at point 2C, Shade said, her voice flat, no trace of the grief she'd felt when Phantom's telemetry cut out. No IFF transponders, matches Zythric disposable recon payloads. Mara's voice cut through the squadron comms, crisp as always, no tremor. Hold fire, any weapons discharge will spike our emission signatures. The Hegemony has a firing solution for the carrier fleet 8,000 clicks aft if we light up. Let them pass. The drones swarmed out of the Vanguard cruiser's launch bays, tiny silver specks against the black, fanning across the nebula's sensor, blind spots the ASFs were hiding in. One passed 40 meters from Wraith's cockpit, its sensor array painting his hull for 0.2 seconds. He didn't move, didn't breathe. The adaptive stealth coating on his ASF's hull absorbed the scan, no signature blade. The drone veered off, joining the rest of the swarm as they swept deeper into the iron gas clouds. "Scan's clean," Shade murmured, then her fingers stuttered over her console. "Wait, the drones aren't just recon, they're emitting a low-frequency gravity pulse." Mapping the nebula's unstable wells, Wraith's stomach dropped. He pulled up the tactical overlay the carrier's command was feeding them, and saw the pulse signatures layering over the nebula's known gravity anomalies, carving a clean, stable corridor straight through the cloud. "They're plotting a warp jump path," he said, his voice tight. "Main battle line S coming through." On the carrier's bridge, Mara stared at the intel display, her knuckles white around the command rail. The hegemony's main fleet was 12 hours out at sublight, but a warp jump through the corridor would put 18 dreadnoughts and their escort screen on top of the human fleet in 90 seconds. No amount of point defense fire could stop that. She keyed the comms, her voice steady as stone. "All units weapons free on swarmer drones. Kinetic rounds only, no plasma, no missiles. Do not let a single drone complete its scan. Wraith, your point, take the lead cluster." "Copy," Wraith said. He toggled his stealth emitter down to 70% output, dipping his ASF out of the iron gas cloud and into open space. His 20 rotary cannon spun up with a low whine, and he squeezed the trigger. 3 lead drones disintegrated into sparking debris, no time for them to transmit their data. Shade picked off a cluster of 6, her rounds punching clean through their sensor hubs, sending them tumbling into the gas cloud. The moment the cannons fired, the ASF's stealth signatures spiked across the hegemony's sensor net. The Vanguard cruiser immediately fired a volley of high-intensity pings, washing over the sector. Wraith's console flashed red as 3 pings locked onto his hull, his stealth coating flickering under the stress. He yanked his flight stick hard to port, diving back into the dense iron cloud, the pings losing him for 3 seconds. When he pulled out, he saw it. At the far edge of the nebula, space warped, the glint of a hegemony dreadnought's hull bleeding through the jump rift, its main battery capacitors glowing bright blue as they charged. Shade's voice cut through the comms, tight, no trace of fear. "Wraith, dreadnought signature confirmed, jump complete, main battery lock in 8 seconds, they've got our emission traces." "Copy, 8 seconds is a death sentence if we hold position," Wraith snapped, yanking his flight stick fully aft as his ASF's thrusters flared blue. His HUD blinked 3 red lock icons, each tied to the dreadnought's forward main battery turrets, their charge indicators ticking down in tight, unblinking green text, 7.6 seconds. "All units hard burn back into the ion layer, throttle max, no deviation." Shade, pop, chaff, and staggered ECM bursts on my mark, 2 seconds apart to scramble their fire control. "Ghost, Rook, Viper, cover R6, take out any drones that break formation before they can relay a second trace." He didn't wait for acknowledgments, just counted down under his breath, his gloved fingers hovering over the trigger for his rear point defense cannons. 5, ECM stack primed. 4, Iron Cloud Edge 11 clicks ahead, no drift. 3, chaff first now. Shade's ASF spat a cloud of carbon fiber chaff particles, followed a heartbeat later by a burst of broadband electromagnetic noise that washed over the sector. 2 of the 3 lock icons on Wraith's HUD vanished, but the third held fast, tied to the lead dreadnought turret that had locked onto his engine emission trace before he dipped into the cloud earlier. The turret's charge indicator hit 2.1 seconds. Wraith didn't flinch. He slammed the throttle to 110% overload, the ASF's frame screaming as it surged toward the glowing orange wall of the Iron Nebula. The moment his hull breached the dense charged gas, the remaining lock icon winked out, the dreadnought's fire control unable to punch through the ion interference. A half-second later, 3 streaks of superheated blue plasma screamed past the cloud's edge, close enough that Wraith's thermal sensors spiked, the heat washing over his hull and making the stealth coating fizzle for a split second. His comms crackled with a burst of intercepted hegemony traffic, tinny and dripping with condescension. "Insignificant stealth craft, 1 salvo will reduce them to ionized dust. No need to deploy fighter screen." "Salvo missed by 180 meters, estimate." Shade's voice came over the tight beam comms, unaffected by the ion cloud's signal scramble. "Their fire control is garbage, they didn't adjust for cloud density. But they're laying down a barrage along the edge, trying to boil us out. Dreadnought is moving to flank, ETA 90 seconds to get a clean firing solution on the cloud's center." Wraith's console flashed a new warning. "Partial emission trace detected. Enemy destroyer squadron, 6 vessels, 400-meter hull length each, had vectoring in from the dreadnought's port side, launching a fresh swarm of 40 swarmer drones to sweep the cloud's upper quadrant." The earlier drones had gotten a 12% scan of the ASF's engine signature before they'd been destroyed, enough for the destroyers to narrow their search grid to a 50-kilometer cube inside the nebula. "They're not gonna boil us out," Wraith said, his voice steady, no trace of the adrenaline he knew was humming in his veins. His heart rate monitor in the corner of his HUD read 61 BPM, same as it had during his last simulated dogfight. "Rook Viper, you're on breakout. Vector 030, low angle, stay under the dreadnought's minimum gun elevation of 15 degrees. Don't engage the destroyers until you're clear of the cloud, draw their fire away from the rest of us. Ghost Shade, you're on drone suppression. Take out any swarmer that gets within 20 clicks of the cloud edge before it can relay a full trace. I'm hanging back to cover the center, keep the dreadnought's attention on me." He didn't wait for confirmation, just toggled his stealth emitter back to 100% output, cranking his engine power to match the breakout pair's thrust. A second later, Rook and Viper punched out of the ion cloud's lower edge, their hulls vanishing from visual range as their stealth systems engaged fully. The destroyer squadron's sensors lit up instantly, firing a volley of kinetic rounds that chewed up the empty space where the ASFs had been a half-second earlier. Locked on, 3 destroyers vectoring toward us, Rook's voice came over the comms, tight but calm. "Dreadnought is adjusting turrets to engage us. We're drawing fire, clear to send the rest of the squadron out when ready." Wraith watched his HUD as 2 of the destroyers broke off to chase Rook and Viper, their main batteries firing slow, deliberate rounds that lit up the dark space between them. The 3rd destroyer hung back, launching its swarm of drones toward the ion cloud's upper quadrant. He squeezed his trigger, firing a short burst of 20 rounds through the cloud's edge, the kinetic rounds punching through the lead drone's sensor hub and sending it spinning into the gas. The rest of the swarm scattered, their scanning arrays unable to lock onto the ASFs hidden inside the ion interference. "Good shooting," Shade said, her own rounds picking off 2 more drones before they could get a full scan. "Dreadnought's barrage is shifting to the upper quadrant. They're buying the destroyer time to sweep. We've got 45 seconds before they get a full trace of our position inside the cloud." Wraith adjusted his heading, drifting deeper into the ion nebula as the dreadnought's plasma rounds slammed into the cloud's upper edge, turning the gas into a roiling wall of fluorescent orange light. He could see the glint of the hegemony cruiser's hull at the far edge of the sector, its sensor arrays sweeping the area, confident the tiny human stealth fighters were seconds away from being vaporized. They had no idea the ASFs were already moving to flank their destroyer screen, their weapons primed, their pilots calm, ready to tear a hole through the arrogant alien armada's defenses before the dreadnought could fire a second salvo. Chapter 5, Episode 27, Desperate invisible stealth fighters clash with a Titanic alien armada in a ruthless deep space dogfight ASF. The ion cloud boiled with plasma fire, its edges glowing like a storm front lit by artillery. Wraith's HUD flickered with interference, but his voice remained steady. "Shade, cut 30 degrees port. Rook and Viper are dragging those destroyers wide. We punch through the gap before the dreadnought recalibrates." Shade's reply was clipped, professional. "Copy, weapons hot." The human stealth fighters slid deeper into the nebula, their hulls vanishing into the electromagnetic haze. The alien dreadnought's sensor beams swept like searchlights across the void, arrogant in their precision, convinced no human craft could evade them for long. But the ASFs were built for this, machines designed to be ghosts in the dark. The hegemony destroyer on the flank adjusted its formation, drones scattering outward in a lattice pattern. Their sensor arrays pulsed, trying to triangulate the faint ion disturbances left by the fighters' thrusters. The alien commander's voice carried across the comm intercept, translated by the ASF systems. "Sector sweep complete in 40 seconds. Human craft will be neutralized. Maintain barrage." Wraith smirked inside his helmet. "They're counting seconds. That's their mistake." He throttled forward, his fighter's stealth skin absorbing the nebula's radiation. The dreadnought's plasma batteries thundered again, detonating pockets of ion gas into blinding bursts. The alien fleet believed they were flushing prey. In reality, they were opening corridors of turbulence the ASFs could exploit. Shade marked the destroyers aft. "I'll take the lead," her targeting reticle locked onto the alien vessel's engine cluster. "Confirmed, firing solution in 10. The human fighters broke formation, sliding into attack vectors invisible to the alien sensors. The destroyer's drones swarmed, but their coordination faltered under the interference. Shade's burst of 20 rounds shredded 2 drones instantly, their fragments scattering like sparks across the nebula. "Engines exposed," she reported. Wraith's voice was calm, surgical. "Then we cut them open." He armed a pair of magnetically guided penetrators, the warheads designed to burrow through armored plating before detonating. With a squeeze of the trigger, the missiles streaked forward, vanishing into the haze. The alien destroyer's defense grid activated, plasma turrets swiveling to intercept, but the ASF's missiles curved unpredictably, riding the ion currents. One slammed into the destroyer's port engine, erupting in a silent flash that tore through its stabilizers. The second punched into the aft hull, igniting a chain of explosions that rippled across the vessel's spine. Shade's voice was sharp, target crippled. Hull breach confirmed. The destroyer lurched, its drones scattering in panic. The alien commander barked orders, but the arrogance in his tone was gone, replaced by urgency. Meanwhile, Rook and Viper were still dragging the other two destroyers wide, their fighters darting through plasma fire with impossible precision. Viper's transmission cut through the static. "Wraith, we've got them chasing shadows. You've got a clean corridor to the Dreadnought's flank." Wraith didn't hesitate. "Then we take it." The ASFs regrouped, sliding through the gap left by the crippled destroyer. Ahead, the Dreadnought loomed, a Titanic silhouette bristling with weapons, its hull glowing with alien runes that pulsed like a heartbeat. Its sensor arrays swept again, confident, almost mocking. Shade whispered, "That thing thinks it's untouchable." Wraith's reply was cold steel. "Let's prove it wrong." The Dreadnought's barrage intensified, plasma rounds hammering the nebula with relentless precision. Each detonation shook the fighters' hulls, but the ASFs held formation, their pilots' calm, voices steady. 30 seconds before they recalibrate, Shade warned. "Plenty of time," Wraith said. He armed the stealth fighter's primary payload, disruptor torpedoes designed to overload alien shielding. The Dreadnought's arrogance was its weakness. It believed no human craft could breach its defenses, but the ASFs had prepared for this exact moment. The fighters streaked forward, invisible phantoms riding the turbulence. The Dreadnought's sensors flickered, confused by the ion interference. Its plasma batteries fired blind, detonating empty pockets of gas. "Shade, release on my mark." "Ready." 3, 2, mark. Their torpedoes launched, vanishing into the haze. The Dreadnought's shields flared, absorbing the impact, but the disruptors weren't designed for brute force. They injected chaos into the alien system, scrambling the shield harmonics. The Dreadnought's hull flickered, its protective barrier collapsing in patches. Shade's voice was sharp. "Shields compromised. We've got openings." Wraith's tone was ice. "Then we carve the beast." The ASFs dove, their cannons blazing. Kinetic rounds slammed into exposed plating, tearing through the Dreadnought's outer hull. Explosions rippled across its surface, venting streams of plasma into the void. Alien comms erupted in panic, their arrogance shattered. The Dreadnought's weapons faltered, its barrage stuttering. Rook's voice cut in, triumphant. "They're bleeding. Push the assault." The fighters pressed forward, weaving through debris and plasma fire. Shade's rounds ripped into the Dreadnought's sensor arrays, blinding its targeting systems. Wraith's missiles hammered the exposed reactor conduits, detonating in a chain reaction that shook the entire vessel. The Dreadnought reeled, its massive frame shuddering under the assault. Alien destroyers scrambled to regroup, their drones swarming in desperation. But the ASFs were already inside the beast's defenses, ghosts tearing it apart from within. Wraith's voice was calm, almost detached. "Objective achieved. Dreadnought crippled. Maintain pressure until it burns." Shade exhaled, steady even in victory. "Copy, finishing the job." The human fighters circled like predators, their weapons carving through the Dreadnought's failing hull. Explosions rippled across the vessel, each detonation a reminder that arrogance had met its reckoning. In the chaos, the alien fleet faltered. Their confidence shattered, their formations broken. The humans had proven what the hegemony refused to believe. Stealth, precision, and calm resolve could dismantle even the most titanic armada. Wraith's final words carried across the comm, cold and resolute. "Let them remember this day." Invisible ghosts tore their empire's pride apart. The Dreadnought's core erupted, a silent inferno consuming its frame. The ASFs pulled back, their hulls vanishing once more into the nebula, leaving only wreckage and fire behind. Chapter 5 ends with the alien armada reeling, their arrogance broken, their Dreadnought crippled, while the human stealth fighters vanish into the storm, preparing for the next strike. Chapter 6 The Dreadnought's core blast washed over the hegemony's second screen line in a silent, superheated wave, vaporizing 3 support cruisers before their crews could issue a single distress call. On the bridge of the flagship Hegemony's Fist, Commodore Vrax's mandibles clicked in frantic, undignified rage as his tactical officer shouted over the din of failing systems. "No contacts. The invisible attackers have vanished, no signature on any sensor band." Vrax slammed a fist onto his command console, cracking the polished alloy surface. "Saturation fire. Charge the main lance batteries, target the entire nebula sector. Burn every cubic kilometer of that gas cloud until there's nothing left but ash." His order was cut off by a quiet, flat voice crackling over the open comm frequency, one the humans had left open on purpose. "Copy that, Commodore. We'll be sure to send your wives flowers when we're done scrubbing the rest of your fleet off the map." Wraith's cockpit hummed, the HUD flickering with residual radiation from the Dreadnought's destruction. He ran a quick systems check, port thruster damaged from a point offense around 10 minutes prior, 72% efficiency, stealth coding integrity at 68% after skirting the blast wave. Shade's voice came over the squad comm, steady as ever. Systems green, I've got a lock on the fist's power spike. Main lance is at 87% charge, targeting solution locked on the human colony at L5, 92 seconds to full fire. Wraith's jaw tightened. The colony housed 12,000 civilian colonists, the entire reason their squadron had been deployed to the system in the first place. He adjusted his flight path to dive into a denser band of ionized gas that would mask his thermal signature. Copy. Rook, report flank. Rook's voice was sharp, barely edged with the tension of her first deep space kill. 2 destroyers breaking off the main line, cutting for our 6 o'clock. Range 8 clicks, closing at 400 kps. They're trying to box us in before the lances fire. Rook, take the lead destroyer. Shade, you take the trail. I'm holding for the lance run. No mistakes. The next 12 seconds stretched thin, the only sounds in the 3 cockpits the low thrum of fusion reactors and the soft, rapid ping of proximity alerts. Rook uncloaked for exactly 1.3 seconds, just long enough to lock 2 15 kinetic penetrators onto the lead destroyer's bridge. The rounds punched through 2 meters of composite armor, detonated inside the command deck, and the destroyer went dark, no explosion, no debris to mark its fall. Shade fired a single anti-ship missile up the exhaust port of the second destroyer. Its reactor went critical in a small, silent flash, leaving nothing but drifting scrap metal. Wraith was 3.8 clicks out from the hegemony's fist when the lance charge hit 94%. The cruiser's point defense turrets swarmed the ion cloud around him, tracer rounds lighting up the purple-gray haze. A burst caught his port wing, peeling back a strip of stealth coating to expose dull gray alloy underneath before the auto-repair sealant hardened. His HUD flashed a red warning, cloak efficiency down to 62%. He didn't flinch. He lined the reticle up with the cluster of lance charging ports on the cruiser's bow, held his breath for half a second, and fired a salvo of 4 guided EMP warheads. They detonated in sequence, each one punching through the cruiser's outer hull to bury themselves in the charging ports. The lance arrays overloaded, exploding outward in a cascade of sparks and superheated plasma that tore straight up into the bridge. Commodore Vrax's final, gurgling scream came over the open comm frequency before cutting out entirely as the bridge was consumed by fire. The hegemony's fist went dark, then a series of internal explosions rippled across its hull as its own main reactor breached, venting superheated gas into the void. Wraith keyed the squad comm, his voice as calm as it had been when they'd launched from the human carrier 3 hours prior. Command cruiser eliminated. Lances neutralized. All units break off, return to rally point. Mission complete. The 3 ASFs tilted their wings, vanishing back into the swirling heart of the nebula, leaving the broken hegemony fleet adrift behind them. Wraith's rear sensors picked up half the remaining alien vessels powering down their weapons, a handful even flashing the universal surrender code, something no human soldier had ever seen a hegemony vessel do. Wraith's cockpit reeks of burnt polymer and ionized ozone, the strip of exposed dull gray alloy on his port wing still oozing slow-hardening auto-repair sealant. The 62% cloak efficiency warning flashes persistent red in the bottom corner of his HUD, ignored as he watches the ionized veil, nebula streaks paint the drifting hegemony's fist wreck in shifting bands of magenta and sickly green. Cruiser's final explosions have faded, leaving only the faint hum of his ASF's cooling systems and the crackle of open squad comms. Viper's voice cuts through the static first, sharp, no wasted inflection. Sensors confirm 6 remaining capitals. 4 are flashing standard surrender codes. The other 2, Hegemony Resolve, Iron Fist's Bane, are dumping reactor output into unregistered systems. No lance charging signatures yet. Wraith taps his comms panel, pulling up the Daedalus fleet feed. Commodore Hale's face fills the upper left HUD, her expression as unreadable as the void outside, no trace of the relief most crews would feel after eliminating a command cruiser. Confirmed target elimination, Wraith. We're reading massive exotic energy spikes from the lead surrender vessel. They're not complying with protocol. Copy, command. Wraith's voice is level, no hint of the adrenaline still thrumming in his veins. He taps his passive sensor display, the Resolve's energy signature glowing hot orange, pulsing in time with the carrier's reactor output. They're charging a Class IV crustal pulse cannon. Charge level 72% and climbing. They faked the surrender to buy time for a shot on the Daedalus. Ghost's comm cuts in right after, the sound of his own point defense batteries spitting fire crackling in the background. Confirmed. 2 full lance arrays on the Bane are tracking the carrier, range 18 clicks. They're waiting for the pulse cannon to fire before they open up, draw our attention. Wraith's jaw tightens. The Daedalus is the last human capital ship in the Epsilon sector, its hangars full of refugee transports from the colony the hegemony had already glassed 3 days prior. 12,400 souls, half of them civilians, huddled behind the carrier's shields, unable to jump to FTL until the hegemony threat was neutralized. If that pulse cannon fires, there won't be enough left of the carrier to identify. Viper, you take the Bane and its Lance escorts. Wraith tilts his ASF's wings, diving out of the nebula cloud toward the Resolve, cloaks flickering as ionized gas interferes with the stealth coatings field emitters. Ghost, you cover her 6, suppress all point defense on the Resolve. I'm going in for a close-range targeting beacon drop. The Daedalus can't get a firing solution through the nebula static without it. Copy that, lead. Viper's ASF peels off to the right, engines flaring bright blue as she accelerates toward the Bane. Lance batteries are locking on me. I'm drawing their fire. You've got 30 seconds before that pulse cannon hits full charge. A lance beam streaks past Wraith's canopy a second later, close enough to burn a permanent streak through the polycarbonate. His cloak efficiency drops to 54% as a fragment of the beam clips his port wing, sending a shower of sparks into the cockpit. He doesn't flinch, adjusts his flight path by 2 degrees to dodge a spread of point defense rounds peppering the space around him. 2 cloaked hegemony ASFs pop up on his 6 at 800 meters, mass driver rounds pinging off his tail section. Wraith jinks hard, rolls 90 degrees left, fires a spread of short-range anti-fighter missiles. One enemy ASF explodes in a fireball of superheated gas. The second gets a hit on his starboard engine, sending his craft into a violent spin. He fights the stick, teeth gritted against the G-force pressing him into his seat, and pushes the throttle to max to stabilize. At 500 meters out, he deploys the micro-targeting beacon, watching it latch onto the Resolve's hull via magnetic clamps. The beacon's signal pings straight to the Daedalus fire control system, and 3 seconds later, the carrier's mass driver rounds punch through the nebula cloud, slamming into the pulse cannon's charge chamber. The explosion blows the entire bow of the Resolve off in a cascade of fire and debris, the remaining hegemony ships going dark immediately, flashing surrender codes so bright they show up even through the nebula static. Viper's rough, relieved laugh crackles over the comms. That'll learn, M. No casualties on our end. My ASF took a scratch, but it's flyable. Bane is powering down, all lances offline. Ghost's voice is steady, no trace of the tension from 10 minutes prior. Looks like that surrender code is real this time. Wraith taps his comms, keying the Daedalus channel. Rally point in 5. All units return to base. He glances at his HUD, at the burnt patch of dull gray alloy where his cloaking coating used to be, then at the drifting hegemony wrecks. The victory feels thin, temporary, like the nebula's static will clear to reveal something worse waiting on the other side. The Daedalus channel opens again, Commodore Hale's voice sharper now, no trace of the comm she'd used during the mission briefing. Good work, Wraith. We pulled Commander Vrax's personal logs off his cruiser's black box before it vented. The hegemony wasn't operating alone out here. There's a larger fleet, 12 capital ships, heading for the Epsilon colony's inner planets. EA 72 hours. Wraith's hand tightens on the control stick. The war wasn't over, it had just gotten a hell of a lot bigger. Word count, 987. Wraith's knuckles bleach white around the control stick, the burnt patch of dull gray alloy on his ASF's port wing still smoldering faintly, the smell of seared insulation thick in his cockpit. Hale's words echo over the comms, sharper than any enemy fire, 12 capital ships, 72 hours to Epsilon's inner planets. He cuts her off mid-sentence, keying the closed wing channel before she can spin the briefing into command-approved sanitized garbage. All flights, listen up. Raw intel, no filter. His voice is steady, no tremor, the same tone he uses when he's running pre-flight checks. Hegemony fleet composition, 3 Titan-class dreadnoughts, 9 heavy cruisers, 72 stubwing escort fighters. Dreadnought main guns are 2400 in plasma, rated to punch through planetary shield generators in 2 shots. Epsilon's shields top out at 1200. Civilian population across the inner 3 planets is 2.1 million. Intel is verified, pulled straight from Vrax's personal logs before his cruiser vented. No trap, no misdirection. Main fleet is pinned down in Alpha Centauri. ETA to relieve us is 96 hours. Too late, a beat of static, then Viper's rough voice, all humor gone. So we're the only thing standing between those bastards and a bunch of civvies who grow our food. Affirmative. Wraith pulls up the tactical map on his HUD, the red fleet icons crawling toward the blue Epsilon system. We're not engaging head-on. Staggered FTL jumps, 3 flights, 2-hour intervals. That'll keep our power cores above 30% on arrival, enough for a 45-minute dogfight before we have to RTB for a recharge. Ghost, you're leading Flight 2. Calculate intercept vectors that put us in the asteroid belt between the outer and inner planets before the hegemony fleet breaks out of FTL. We'll use the rock cover to get close enough to take out their command nodes before they can charge their main guns. Ghost's response is immediate, no hesitation. Already ran the numbers. If we jump to the western cluster first, we can catch their escort screen off guard before they deploy full coverage. 2 anti-capital missile pods per flight, rest of the loadout is pulse rounds for the stub wings. We take out the escorts first, then pick off the Titans' comms arrays while they're charging main guns. Their point defense can't track fast enough to hit us if we're coming in low through the rocks. Before Wraith can respond, Hale's voice cuts back in, sharp with urgency. Wraith, the Daedalus is diverting all escort frigates to Epsilon, but they're only fitted with point defense, no heavy ordnance. Civilian transports are lifting now. ETA to clear the inner planets is 48 hours. You have to hold the hegemony off that long, no exceptions. Wraith's jaw tightens. 48 hours, not 72. The hegemony must have picked up the transport signatures, sped up their approach. He keys the wing channel again, ignoring Hale's sputtering protests. Flight leads, adjust your timelines. Evac window is 48 hours, not 72. We hold the line at the asteroid belt, no retreat. If any of your ASFs take critical damage, you punch out, no heroics. We don't leave anyone behind, but we don't waste assets either. A low warning chime blares in his cockpit, his stealth drive flickering for half a second before stabilizing. He slaps the alarm silent, doesn't mention it to the others. His cloaking coating was destroyed in the last dogfight. His power core is running at 78% efficiency, down from 100% pre-mission. He's the most vulnerable member of the wing, which means he's the perfect decoy for Flight 1. He'll draw the escort fighters' attention away from Viper and Ghost's flights, give them the opening they need to take out the Titans' comms arrays. The Daedalus's comms crackle again, this time with the hangar bay chief's voice. All ASF flights prep for FTL jump in 20 mics. Munitions loadout confirmed. Techs are running final diagnostics. Wraith glances at the small, cracked photo taped to his dashboard. His 12-year-old sister Leela, grinning in her hydroponics bay uniform, Epsilon Prime's sun shining behind her. He doesn't have time for fear, not when 2.1 million people are counting on him. He keys the wing channel one last time, his voice as calm as it was during the mission briefing. Check your weapons, check your ejection systems. We jump in 10. Let's go make sure those cowards never get close enough to hurt anyone. The FTL engagement lurches through Wraith's ASF, the hull groaning as the drive spins up to relativistic speeds. His HUD flickers violently for a full second this time, the stealth system's status bar flashing red before stuttering back to amber. He slaps the diagnostic alert silent, notes the power core has dropped to 76% during transit, and doesn't mention it to the wing channel. The smell of burnt wiring and recycled air fills the cockpit, the cracked photo of Leela taped to the dash still visible through the haze of a tiny crack in the lower HUD. He brushes a smudge off the corner of the photo with his knuckle, not taking his eyes off the nav display as the ship holds its FTL course. The Daedalus's comms crackle 30 seconds later, the hangar bay chief's voice tight but steady. All units FTL exit confirmed. You're 0.2 light years from the Titan outer picket, 12 mics to Op Alpha. Flight leads, execute mission profiles on my mark. Copy, Daedalus. Viper 1's voice cuts in, sharp and unemotional. Wraith, this is Viper. We're tucked behind the Kappa asteroid cluster. Draw their escorts out of the picket corridor. We move on the comms spire the second they're distracted. Roger, Viper. Jack's with me. The ship lurches again as it drops out of FTL, and for a second Wraith's vision goes white. When it clears, the tactical display floods with contacts. The Titan Armada stretches across 12,000 kilometers of void. Matte black Leviathan capital ships 3 kilometers long, iron drives glowing deep purple, thousands of iridescent green escort fighters swarming around them like bloodflies. The asteroid belt is a dense cloud of rock and ice 200 clicks ahead, perfect cover for Viper and Ghost's flights. His HUD pings immediately, 40 clicks, closing fast. The Titan fighters break formation, angling straight for his flight. Jax, take left flank, Wraith says, throttling up deliberately to make himself a bigger target. I'll draw the bulk east away from the asteroid cluster. Only engage if you have a clean shot, preserve munitions. Jax's dry laugh comes over the comms. Roger, Wraith, just remember if you buy it, I'm stealing that hydroponics photo of your sister for good luck. The lead Titan fighter fires a plasma round that streaks past his port wing, close enough to singe the paint. Wraith jinks hard, G4 slamming him into his seat, the photo of Leela slipping loose. He tucks it back into the edge of the dash with his thumb, not breaking his gaze on the HUD as a missile warning BL. The missile warning blared across Wraith's cockpit, shrill enough to drown out the hum of the stealth fighter's ion drive. He didn't hesitate, yanked the stick full left, triggered countermeasures in the same motion. Chaff and decoy flares bloomed behind his port wing, the iridescent green Titan plasma missile skidding past his starboard canopy close enough to singe the edge of his HUD, detonating in a silent flash of purple light a click off his stern. The shockwave rattled his teeth, the photo of Leela slipping loose from the dash retention slot. He tucked it back with his thumb. No break. Chapter 11, Episode 27. Desperate invisible stealth fighters clash with a Titanic alien armada in a ruthless deep space dogfight. ASF. The Titan armada loomed like a continent of steel and plasma, its warships blotting out the stars. Each vessel bristled with weapons arrays, their hulls shimmering with the alien empire's arrogance. The humans had no such luxury, only the Wraith squadron, invisible ghosts threading through the void, their ion drives whispering against the silence. Squadron, Titan formation, Commander Rourke's voice cut across the encrypted channel, calm as a surgeon's scalpel. We're threading the needle. No mistakes. Wraith adjusted his grip on the stick, jaw locked. His HUD painted a lattice of hostile signatures, hundreds of Titan interceptors fanning out, their plasma lances already warming. The humans had one advantage, stealth, but stealth meant nothing once the Titans flooded the battle space with sensor drones, each one a floating eye. Ghost 2 marked the drone cluster at Vector 9, Wraith said, voice clipped. Copy, targeting. Ghost 2's railgun spat a tungsten slug across the void. The drone cluster erupted in a silent scatter of fragments, but the Titans reacted instantly. A cruiser pivoted, its broadside cannons belching emerald fire, the squadron Dove. Ion drives flared, invisible to Titan optics but not to their instincts. The aliens fired blind, saturating the void with plasma storms. Counterbarrage incoming, Rourke warned. Stay low, stay erratic. Wraith rolled hard, slicing beneath the plasma arcs. His canopy lit with ghostly green reflections, each near miss a reminder of how thin the margin was. He thumbed the missile bay release. 2 stealth torpedoes slipped free, their drives cold, gliding toward the Titan cruiser's belly. Ghost 1 confirmed strike package, Rourke demanded. Package away, Wraith replied. The torpedoes detonated in sequence, ripping open the cruiser's ventral hull. Loom of atmosphere vented into the void, carrying shredded plating and alien bodies. The Titan formation staggered, but only for a heartbeat. Good hit, Ghost 2 muttered, but they're not slowing. Indeed, the Armada pressed forward, inexorable. The Titans were not merely fighting, they were demonstrating dominance, their empire's pride woven into every maneuver. Command wants us to bleed them, Rourke said. We're not here to win, we're here to make them hurt. The words were ice, Wraith understood. Humanity's fleet was scattered, resources stretched thin. The Wraith squadron was the scalpel, carving wounds deep enough to remind the Titans that humans were not prey. Ghost 3 flank right, Ghost 4 shadow me, we're cutting into their carrier screen. The squadron split, weaving through the Titan wall. Wraith sensors pinged carrier signatures, massive hulls brimming with interceptors. If those bays opened, the humans would drown in fighters. Target bays, priority strike, Rourke ordered. Wraith armed his plasma penetrators. He lined up the shot, HUD crosshairs trembling over the carrier's launch aperture. He fired. The penetrator streaked invisible, then tore through the aperture in a burst of molten light. The bay collapsed inward, crushing half a wing of interceptors before they could launch. Carrier crippled, Wraith reported. Confirmed. Ghost 4 cover Ghost 1, Titans are vectoring interceptors. The alien response was immediate. Swarms of interceptors surged, their hulls gleaming like shards of obsidian. They moved with mechanical precision, arcs converging on Wraith's position. Ghost 1, you're hot, Rourke snapped. Wraith pulled hard, ion drive screaming. He dropped decoys, flares scattering like false stars. Plasma bolts carved past, one grazing his port stabilizer. Warning lights flared red. Stabilizer compromised, Wraith said, voice steady. Keep flying, you're not done yet. The interceptors pressed closer, their formation tightening. Wraith's mind narrowed. He toggled the stealth disruptor, a risky move. His fighter shimmered into partial visibility, baiting the aliens. Ghost 1, what the hell are you doing? Ghost 2 barked. Drawing them in, Wraith replied. The interceptors locked, plasma lances charging. Wraith waited until the last second, then cut drive, flipping his fighter belly up. The interceptors overshot, their formation collapsing into chaos. Wraith reignited his drive, loosing a spread of micromissiles. The swarm disintegrated, fragments scattering like ash. Ghost 1 kill confirmed, Rourke said. Risky, but effective. The squadron regrouped, weaving deeper into the Titan formation. Every strike was surgical, every maneuver calculated. Yet the Armada remained vast, unbroken. Command reports Titan flagship vectoring, Rourke said. We're about to meet their hammer. Wraith's HUD lit with the flagship's signature, a leviathan of war, its hull layered with shields, its weapons arrays dwarfing entire cities. The sight was suffocating. Ghost Squadron, listen up, Rourke said, voice iron. We're ghosts, we don't fear giants, we cut them until they bleed. The flagship's cannons ignited, arcs of plasma sweeping across the void. The squadron Dove weaving through the storm. Wraith's teeth rattled as shockwaves hammered his hull. He He clutched the photo of Leela again, thumb pressing against the worn edges. Ghost 1, you're on point, Rourke said. Find us a hole. Wraith scanned the flagship's hull. Amid the shields and plating, he spotted a weakness, an exhaust vent, shielded but not armored. Vector marked, Wraith said. It's narrow. Then make it wide, Rourke replied. The squadron aligned, weapons primed. Wraith led the charge, his fighter slicing through the plasma storm. He loosed penetrators, each one slamming into the vent. The shields flickered, then collapsed. Vent open, Wraith said. Ghost Squadron, strike now, Rourke commanded. The squadron unleashed everything, torpedoes, rail slugs, plasma bursts. The vent imploded, chain reactions rippling through the flagship systems. The Leviathan shuddered, its weapons flickering. Flagship crippled, Ghost 2 breathed, but the Titans did not retreat. Instead, the Armada surged, fury incarnate. The humans had wounded their pride, and now the storm would fall. Squadron brace, Rourke said. This fight isn't over, it's only beginning. Wraith's HUD filled with hostile signatures, the void alive with plasma fire. He tightened his grip, calm as ever. The ghosts would bleed the Empire or die trying. And in the silence between missile warnings, Wraith whispered to himself, for Leela, for Earth, the storm swallowed them whole. Chapter 12, Episode 27, ASF The Void Boiled with Fire. Alien plasma lances carved arcs across the black, each beam wide enough to vaporize a city. Human stealth fighters, Ghost Squadron, slipped between them, invisible until the moment their weapons spat light. The clash was no longer surgical. It was a brawl between titans, fought in silence except for the clipped voices on comms. Ghost 1, tally bandits, 3 squadrons inbound, Vector 095, Rourke's voice cut through the static. Comm, precise, copy, Wraith replied. His HUD painted the swarm, sleek alien interceptors, their hulls shimmering with adaptive camouflage. Predators hunting predators. The human fighters broke formation, scattering into the storm. Each pilot flew alone, trusting only instinct and the faint whispers of tactical AI. Wraith throttled hard, his fighter's stealth skin flickering as alien sensors probed. He banked into the debris field of the crippled flagship, using shattered plating as cover. Ghost 3 status, Rourke asked. Engaged, 2 on me, I'll shake them. Wraith's teeth clenched. Ghost 3's voice was steady, but the odds were brutal. He rolled his fighter, cutting power, drifting cold. The alien interceptors streaked past, chasing the decoy signature he'd seeded seconds earlier. He reignited engines, slamming a rail slug into the nearest pursuer. The alien craft disintegrated, fragments tumbling into the void. Splash 1, Wraith said. The second interceptor wheeled back, plasma cannons charging, Wraith Dove skimming the flagship's fractured hull. The alien fired, plasma gouged the wreckage, detonating fuel cells. The blast swallowed the interceptor whole. Ghost 3 clear, came the relieved voice, but the relief was short-lived. The Armada's capital ships shifted, their massive hulls rotating in unison. Hundreds of launch bays opened, disgorging waves of drones, small, fast, merciless. The void became a hive of hostile signatures. Command, this is Ghost Squadron, Rourke transmitted. Enemy deploying mass drone screen. Advise immediate countermeasures, Static answered. The fleet's command net was jammed, the humans were alone. Squadron, listen up, Rourke said, voice iron. We cut through or we die here, ghosts don't retreat. Acknowledgements came sharp, no hesitation. Wraith's fighter shuddered as drones locked on. He fired chaff, then loosed a spread of microtorps. Explosions rippled, shredding dozens, but hundreds more swarmed. He toggled to close-range cannons, the cockpit vibrating with each burst. Ghost 2, I'm hit, stabilizers gone, a voice gasped. Hold Ghost 2, Rourke snapped. Wraith, cover him. On it. Wraith swung his fighter, intercepting the swarm converging on Ghost 2. He fired in controlled bursts, cutting a path. Ghost 2 limped through, trailing sparks. Ghost 2 clear, Wraith confirmed. The alien flagship, though crippled, still loomed. Its core reactor pulsed, stabilizing. If it recovered, the battle was lost. Wraith's eyes locked on the vent they had breached earlier. The damage was partial, the reactor still lived. Rourke, recommends strike on reactor. Vents compromised. We finish it now. Silence, then approved. Ghost Squadron, converge on Wraith's mark. All ordnance full burn. The squadron aligned, battered but unbroken. Each fighter streaked toward the vent, weaving through plasma storms and drone swarms. Alien interceptors dove to intercept, but the ghosts pressed on. 30 seconds to target, Wraith said. Make them count, Rourke replied. The flagship's defenses roared, plasma batteries, missile pods, ion cannons. The void became a furnace. Ghost 4's fighter vanished in a flash, torn apart. Ghost 5 screamed as his hull ruptured, comms cutting mid-word. Keep formation, Rourke barked. Wraith's fighter shook violently, alarms blaring. He ignored them, eyes fixed on the vent. He armed his last torpedoes, fingers steady. 10 seconds, he said. The vent loomed, glowing with reactor heat. Alien drones swarmed to block, forming a living shield. Wraith fired rail slugs, tearing gaps. Ghost Squadron poured fire through the breach. Ordnance away, Wraith said, releasing his torpedoes. The squadron's payload slammed into the vent, for a heartbeat, nothing. Then the reactor flared, light swallowing the flagship. The Leviathan convulsed, hull splitting, shockwaves rippling outward. "Flagship destroyed," Rourke said, voice flat, but victory was not clean. The blast ignited nearby ships, chain reactions cascading. The Armada reeled, formations breaking. Yet thousands of alien craft remained, fury undimmed. "Squadron, regroup," Rourke ordered. "We've gutted their pride, now we bleed them dry." Wraith exhaled, calm even as his cockpit filled with warning lights. He touched the photo of Leela once more, thumb pressing against the worn edges. "For Earth," he whispered. The ghosts turned back into the storm, invisible shadows against a raging empire. The battle was far from over, but the humans had carved a wound the aliens would never forget. And in the silence between missile warnings, Wraith's voice carried across the net, steady as steel. "Ghost Squadron, fight until the void is ours."